The rain drizzled like a slow ache over Atlanta as Alina Moore stepped into the dim, fluorescent glow of the pawn shop, her hands trembling around a small velvet box. Her coat clung to her shoulders, damp from the evening downpour, and exhaustion lined her face like soft bruises. Across the counter, the shopkeeper, a man who'd seen too many desperate people and not enough miracles, waited quietly, his eyes flickering between the box and the woman holding it like a wound. Alina slowly opened it, revealing a white gold wedding band, simple, scuffed, and lovingly engraved with the fading words, "Forever, James." Her thumb lingered on the metal, memories pressing against her chest, laughter in kitchens, whispered, promises in the dark, his voice saying her name like it was something sacred. And now, nothing, not even his pension, not even a headstone yet. She cleared her throat, voice cracking like old glass. Just enough to buy groceries for the week. The man nodded, took the ring, and handed her a stack of 20s. Not much, but enough. Enough to stretch hope a little farther. Alina stepped back into the rain, pocketing the cash, her fingers curling around it like armor. As she walked the 10 blocks home, water soaking into her shoes, she repeated a quiet mantra. Just make it through tonight. Just make it through tonight. When she opened the door to their small apartment, the warm scent of something faint, maybe dust, maybe longing, greeted her. Zoe and Caleb sat at the table with empty plates, legs swinging, eyes lighting up when they saw her. "Hi, Mummy," Caleb chirped. Alina gave them a tired smile and hung her coat by the door. She moved into the kitchen and began cooking rice and beans again. The last onions sizzled in the pan, softening like her resolve. They sat together under the weak ceiling light, steam rising from mismatched bowls. Zoe paused before eating, studying her mother. "Mummy, are you okay?" Alina paused, the weight of the pawn shop, the rain, the ring, all of it, pressing behind her eyes. But she smiled anyway, a practiced, tender kind of lie. "We're okay, baby. We're together. That's all that matters." Alina Moore hadn't always lived like this, piecing together meals from pantry remnants, dodging eviction notices, and counting laundry coins like lifelines. Not long ago, she wore scrubs with pride, her days spent caring for patients in a clean, bustling hospital, her name badge clipped neatly to her chest. Alina Moore, RN. She loved that job, loved knowing she mattered. But COVID swept through the world like a storm with no mercy, and when budgets tightened and staff were cut, she was one of many let go. No warning, no ceremony. Her husband James, once a warehouse manager with calloused hands and a heart she used to believe in, had unraveled even faster. After losing his job during the same wave of layoffs, something in him had cracked. At first it was long silences, nights spent on the couch, missed job interviews. Then came the bottle, then the bets, then the lies. The savings they'd built gone, maxed credit cards, payday loans, excuses. And then one day, just nothing, no note, no number, just an empty closet and silence where his voice should have been. That was 10 months ago. Since then, Alina had become mother, father, provider, protector, all while working cleaning crews at night, scrubbing floors in silence while her body ached and her mind raced. Her days were for the kids, Zoe with her endless questions, and Caleb with his fragile hugs, and her nights were for exhaustion, cleaning other people's spaces while her own world crumbled. The rent was overdue again, the fridge half-stocked, with basics, and her phone lit up daily with unfamiliar numbers, collectors demanding money she didn't have. But Alina wouldn't cry in front of her children. She wouldn't give in to that storm. Every morning, she kissed them awake with a smile. Every evening, she tucked them in like they lived in a castle, not a leaking apartment with creaky walls. The wedding ring had been the last bridge to her old life, the one where she was a wife, a nurse, a woman who still believed in the promise of forever. Letting it go hurt more than she let on, but it was groceries or sentiment, and her kids didn't eat memories. Her neighbor, Mrs. Amina, had seen her struggle without asking too many questions. A retired nurse herself, widowed and wise, she often looked after Zoe and Caleb when Elena's shifts ran long. Over tea one evening, as they folded laundry together in Elena's cramped living room, Amina placed a soft hand over Elena's wrist and said, "No shame in asking for help, my dear. Even strong women bleed." Elena looked away, blinking hard. She didn't want pity. She wanted peace. She wanted a job that let her breathe again. A home where her children didn't flinch at the sound of footsteps outside the door. She wanted James to answer just once, if not to return, then to at least explain how he could vanish so completely. But mostly, she just wanted one morning without fear. One day where the weight of everything didn't sit on her like a second skin. And so, even as her knuckles cracked from mopping too long, even as she pawned away the only thing she had left from her old life, Elena kept going. Because her kids were watching. Because quitting wasn't an option. Because she still believed, somewhere buried under the rubble of heartbreak, that something better had to come. 3 days later, after another bone-deep shift spent scrubbing floors and emptying trash bins in silent office corridors, Elena trudged up the cracked steps to her apartment. The winter wind stung her cheeks, her hands numb through dollar store gloves, and her thoughts were fixed on whether there was still enough milk for the kids' cereal. As she approached the door, she noticed it, a small package sitting squarely on the welcome mat, wrapped neatly in brown paper and sealed with a strip of plain tape. No address, no name. Her brow furrowed, heart flickering with unease and curiosity. She bent down, picked it up, and unlocked the door with trembling fingers. Inside, the apartment was still and quiet. The kids were asleep on the couch. Cartoons frozen on the screen, the remnants of a hastily thrown-together dinner on the table. She sat at the kitchen counter and peeled away the paper. Her breath caught in her throat. Inside the box was her wedding ring. Her ring, the simple white gold band, newly polished, its faint engraving still visible. "Forever, James." It gleamed under the kitchen light like a secret unearthed. She stared at it, stunned. For a moment, the world blurred. Her hands shook as she spotted something else tucked underneath the box, a note, handwritten, careful, clean lettering. She unfolded it slowly. Asterisk, some things are heavier than gold. No mother should have to sell her past to feed her children. I hope this finds you before the world breaks you. A stranger who believes in you. Asterisk. Elena's breath hitched. The words wrapped around her like a blanket she hadn't realized she needed. Her chest ached in places she'd long ignored. Not pain, but something softer, something tender. She pressed the note to her heart, trying to make sense of it. Who? Why? The next morning, she marched straight to the pawn shop, heart racing, ring in her coat pocket. The same man stood behind the counter, surprised to see her. When she showed him the ring, he only nodded. "Yeah," he said. "Sold it 2 days ago. Guy in a grey suit, maybe late 30s. Paid full price in cash. Said it was for the woman who wore it first. Didn't give a name." Elena just stood there, speechless. Something inside her, something buried under months of fatigue and grief and quiet rage, cracked open. It wasn't just about the ring. It was the fact that someone, a complete stranger, had seen her struggle and chosen to give, not gawk, to return something not for praise or recognition, but for dignity. That night, after the kids had gone to bed, Elena sat at the kitchen table in the dark. She held the ring in her palm, staring at the engraving like it was a lifeline, and let the tears come, not loud, not broken, just quiet, steady tears for everything she'd lost, and for the small, startling reminder that she wasn't invisible, that someone believed she was worth helping. And as she slipped the ring back into its box, she didn't feel like a woman clinging to the past. She felt like someone reclaiming a piece of herself. Something shifted, not the weight of the world. That was still there, but something within her spine straightened. A flicker of hope, a trace of dignity, the tiniest beginning of healing. The quiet miracle of the returned ring was no longer just Elena's to carry. Someone in the neighborhood, likely the kind-eyed woman from the corner laundromat, posted about her story on a local community Facebook group. The post was simple, a photo of the wedding ring and a summary. A hard-working mother pawned her last memory of love to feed her kids. Someone bought it back for her, no questions asked. It spread like wildfire. Within days, it had thousands of shares, hundreds of comments. Strangers started showing up in subtle ways. One morning, Alina opened her door to find 2 bags of groceries with a sticky note that read, "You're not alone." A nearby church put out a donation box labeled for Alina and her kids. A local cafe, the Sunbeam, called, offering her a morning position and even through inflexible hours with on-site childcare. For the first time in months, sunlight felt like something other than an obligation. The pressure, however, didn't fully lift. It only changed shape. At her old cleaning job, one of her co-workers, Kim, made a point to sneer while disinfecting a break-room microwave. "So what's the secret, huh?" she said loudly, making sure the others heard. "You sell your marriage for bread and end up a community saint." Alina froze, her jaw clenched, the insult hitting like a slap. But she said nothing, not because it wasn't worth responding to, but because she knew what silence could do, how it could keep you sane. Still, the sting lingered. That night, just when the world felt quiet again, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. She let it ring. It rang again, then a text. "It's James. Please answer." Her stomach turned to ice. She stared at the screen for several minutes before tapping call. His voice on the other end was rough, familiar, unwelcome. "Hey Lena, I saw the post about the ring. About you." Silence. He continued. "I didn't mean for things to go the way they did. I was lost. Still am, but I want to come back. I miss the kids. I miss us." Alina gripped the edge of the counter. Anger surged through her like a wave of fire. "You miss us," she spat. "You disappeared. 10 months, James. Not even a birthday card." He sighed, regretful but measured. "I know, I messed up, but I never stopped thinking about you. I want to make things right." She hung up before she could scream. That night, Amina came over with jollof rice and honey tea and found Alina pacing, her eyes wild. She told her everything. Amina listened quietly, then gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "A man who vanishes when you're drowning," she said softly, "isn't the man who'll save you when you're dry. You survived without him. That's not an accident." Alina nodded, but said nothing. The war inside her raged too loud to hear anything else. A few days later, while she was folding laundry and arguing with James over the phone again, she didn't notice Zoe standing in the hallway, listening. The little girl's voice broke through like a crack of thunder. "Is Daddy coming back?" Alina froze, the shirt she was folding falling from her hands. She knelt beside Zoe, brushing a curl from her daughter's face. "Sweetheart, Daddy, he left because he wasn't ready to be what we needed. And I don't know if he ever will be." Zoe nodded slowly, but said, "I don't remember him much. Just that he had a deep voice and smelled like coffee." Alina smiled through the ache. "That's okay, baby. You remember me, right?" Zoe hugged her tight. "You never left." But that night, when the kids were asleep and the lights were out, Alina collapsed onto her bed and buried her face in a pillow. The scream came from somewhere deep inside, raw, guttural, uncontainable. It was the scream of a woman carrying too much for too long. A woman who'd gone from heartbreak to survival, from survival to spotlight, and still had no roadmap for what came next. The returned ring hadn't healed her. The donations hadn't made her invincible. The world had changed, yes, but her grief, her exhaustion, and her longing for what was once safe and whole still simmered beneath it all. As her sobs faded into silence, only one thought remained. She had to choose, not between James and loneliness, not between pity and pride, but between staying frozen in the past or stepping into something new, however uncertain. And that, more than anything, terrified her. It happened on a Thursday, quiet and grey. Alina had just finished folding laundry when the knock came. She opened the door and there he was, James, clean-shaven, standing straighter than she remembered, wearing a collared shirt and holding a grocery bag in one hand and a toy truck in the other. For a moment, time folded in on itself. The kids ran to him like a dream, cracking open Zoe, screaming "Daddy." As Caleb wrapped his arms around James's leg, Alina couldn't move. She stood frozen, her hands still damp from cleaning spray, her mind spinning. He looked at her and said softly, "Can I come in?" She didn't nod, she didn't smile, but she stepped aside. He brought gifts, colorful books, chocolate, tiny plastic figurines, claimed he'd been in rehab, claimed he had a new job with benefits, said he was clean, focused, better this time. The kids didn't care about the logistics. They just saw their father, their long-lost anchor. That night, Caleb fell asleep on his lap. Zoe chattered about school and cartoons and what she wanted for Christmas. Alina watched from the kitchen, arms folded, something in her cracking open, but not in the way he might have hoped. James smiled at her across the room. "Feels like old times, doesn't it?" She didn't respond. Later, while putting dishes away, she saw him hunched over his phone, back turned. Not unusual, but something felt off. The tension in his shoulders, the flick of his thumb, fast, frantic. She stepped closer, quiet as breath. He was in a private chat room, betting scores, online poker usernames, recent transaction totals. Her heart dropped. Her hands curled into fists. He hadn't changed. Rehab was a story. The job, if it existed, wasn't honest. The man sitting on her couch, holding their son, was still the same man who vanished when their lives collapsed. She waited until the kids were asleep, found him in the kitchen pouring orange juice like he belonged there. "Who were you texting?" she asked, voice sharp, low. He stiffened. "No one. Don't lie. I saw the app." He sighed, then shrugged. "It's just a side thing. I'm in control now. It's not like before." And there it was, the lie beneath the comeback, the decay beneath the polish. "You didn't come back for us," she said, eyes narrowing. "You came back because of the story, the sympathy, the donations. You saw people cared, and you wanted in." He didn't deny it, just looked at her with that same old tired charm and said, "I'm trying, Alina." "No," she said, stepping closer, steady as stone. "You're circling, like always, and I won't let you drag us down again." He tried guilt then, his voice dropping into an old wound. "You sold our ring," a sentence meant to cut, to blame, to shame. But Alina didn't flinch, didn't blink. Her voice was quiet, razor sharp. "No," she said, "I sold my silence." He looked at her for a long moment, but whatever power he once held dissolved. She didn't cry, didn't beg. She pointed to the door and said, simply, "Leave." And he did, not with a slam, but with silence. The kind of silence that follows a final truth. The kind that frees a soul. The apartment still hummed with struggle. Rent was tight, groceries carefully budgeted, but something inside Alina had shifted. The fire that had dimmed now burned steady, grounded in purpose rather than survival. With the help of the community donations and a few nights of child care from Mrs. Amina, she enrolled in a medical office certification program. 3 nights a week, she studied after the kids fell asleep, her eyes heavy but determined. Within 3 months, She landed a part-time job as an administrative assistant at a small local clinic, answering phones, managing appointments, and slowly stepping back into the healthcare world she'd once loved. The pay wasn't much, but it was a door she'd pried open with her own tired, blistered hands. The ring sat in a small glass case on her dresser, no longer hidden in shame or tucked away in pain. She didn't wear it often, but on some days, like her first day at the clinic, or when she received her certification, she would slip it on her finger and look at herself in the mirror. It didn't represent James anymore. It wasn't about the past or the promises that cracked. It was about what remained her, standing still, whole in the places that mattered. One morning, Zoe noticed the ring and asked, "Mummy, why do you wear that if Daddy's gone?" Alina smiled softly, crouching to her daughter's eye level. "Because it reminds me of who I became," she said, brushing a curl from Zoe's face. "Not who I loved." The stranger who had returned the ring never came forward. Not a name, not a message beyond that note. But their gesture had lit something, not just in Alina, but in those who had read the story and quietly offered help. A gift card slipped under the door, a bag of shoes left on the porch, an extra carton of milk at the food pantry. These weren't just things. They were proof that even in a fractured world, goodness still moved through the cracks. One rainy evening, sitting alone with her laptop after putting the kids to bed, Alina wrote an open letter. She didn't expect it to be shared, but it was. Widely, she thanked the stranger who had returned her ring, not just for the object, but for what it restored in her. "You gave me more than metal," she wrote. "You gave me the quiet faith that even when life strips us down, something or someone might help us remember our worth." She closed the letter with a line she meant with her whole being. "To everyone who believes in women like me, mothers who keep standing when everything collapses, thank you. We are still here, and we are rising." Alina walks hand in hand with Zoe and Caleb, their footsteps light and steady as they make their way home from school. The afternoon sun casting long shadows on the sidewalk. The world around them hums quietly with the sounds of a neighborhood settling into evening birds chirping, distant laughter, the rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze. As they approach the familiar pawn shop, Caleb tugs at Elena's sleeve, his eyes bright with innocent wonder, and says, "Mummy, that's where the magic happened." Elena's heart softens at the boy's words, a tender smile spreading across her face. She kneels down to meet Caleb's gaze, her voice warm and sure as she replies, "No, baby, the magic happened when we kept going." Her eyes drift down to her ring finger, now bare, the place where the wedding band once rested. Though the ring is gone, her hand feels whole, firm and steady in a way that speaks of strength born from struggle. The weight she carried for so long has shifted from her fingers into her spirit, leaving behind a resilience that no hardship could break. Together, they continue walking, the quiet rhythm of their steps marking the steady beat of life moving forward. Sometimes, the heaviest things we carry aren't in our hands, but in our hearts. Still, we move forward.